please welcome the man who all the talk show hosts want to be and all the politicians come to see. Live on AM 970, The Answer, Frank Morano.
All right, it's Saturday, December 29th, technically anyway. We're 2 days away from New Year's Eve, 1 day away from my favorite holiday of the year, New Year's Eve. We'll talk more about that later. And 2 days away from the prospective fiscal cliff. Oh, I could feel you cowering by your radios already. All right. Every other radio, TV show in the world, those that aren't on tape, that is, or those where the hosts haven't taken a vacation for the rest of the year, they're all doing the biggest, the best of 2012, the blank of 2012, the worst of 2012, whatever. So, it's all the same. What do you need to listen to any of these shows for? Once you've heard one, you've kind of heard them all. So this is Frank Morano. I'm going to be with you until 4 o'clock this morning. We're going to try and do something different, and we're going to look forward to 2013. I know it's unprecedented in the world of radio to actually look forward to see what's going to happen next year rather than review the last 12 months. But the person we're going to look forward with right now is somebody that actually has a little bit of expertise in this. He's the only man in radio, TV, print, or any other medium that actually has a track record of correctly predicting what's going to occur, not based on astrology or some political ideology, but based on facts and math. He predicted the stock market crash of 1987. He predicted a massive terrorist attack along the scale of September 11th, the popularity of bottled water, the fiscal crisis of 2008, the skyrocketing price of gold, the Arab Spring, and a dozen other marquee world developments that I'm probably forgetting. That's why I'm incredibly pleased to be joined by our very own madcap prophet, the Nostradamus of the night, trends forecaster Gerald Celente, the publisher of the TrendsJournal. Gerald, do you have anything at all to be optimistic about in the year 2013?
Oh yeah, a lot, Frank, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I'm very pleased to be on your show.
And let me say, I appreciate you staying up late for us. I know you have a lot of invitations to do late night radio, and that you do not accept most of them. So sincerely, I really do appreciate you staying up late with us.
Well, that's because I appreciate what you do, and I thank you very much for asking me on. Yeah, in 2013 is going to be great. There's nothing to worry about. The commander-in-chief is in charge. Congress is right up to the job. Everything is going to work out swell.
I'm waiting for the... Here, wait a minute.
I mean, how can anybody believe this stuff? You know, they say that politics is show business for ugly people. Have you watched McConnell and Reid? Have you seen Bonner and Obama? You know, where's Mickey and Mouse and Laurel and Hardy? How can anybody believe this crap?
All right.
How can anybody get away with this stuff?
So tell me, Gerald, what do you foresee on the horizon for 2013?
Well, again, what you're seeing is what you're getting. You have the incompetence and the inepts. Everything they touch, they turn to garbage. You think they're going to bail us out of this mess? Hey, I got one for you. Hey, Frank, let's start a war over there in Afghanistan. Yeah, don't worry about the exit strategy. We're going to stay there for the longest war in American history. Hey, I got an idea. Let's start a war in Iraq. It'll end up dandy. We'll kill 1 million people, cost $1 trillion, lose 5,000 of our soldiers, get the limbs blown off and minds blown out of the rest of them that go there. It'll work great. I got one. Let's do a humanitarian mission in Libya. It'll be terrific. Hey, how about this? Let's leave no child behind. We'll get an education czar. The whole thing will work out swell, I tell you. Hey, listen, let's fight a war on drugs. We'll spend a couple of $1 trillion, pass it around to our buddies, and we won't accomplish anything, but we'll tell them we're winning. How could anybody believe anything good is going to come out of the D.C. gang?
You laugh to keep from crying, but you're absolutely right. Now, I have followed you for years now, and I've always been impressed with what you've written and what you've said. But for folks that are hearing you now for the first time, they're hearing you criticize Obama, they're hearing you criticize McConnell and Boehner, they're hearing you criticize the war in Afghanistan and No Child Behind. Some of these are liberal sacred cows. Some of these are conservative sacred cows. Just explain to folks what exactly is your ideology so they know where you're coming from on your perspective.
I'm a political atheist. I don't believe in political religions, and I don't bow to political gods. I didn't vote in this last election, the first one I didn't vote in. I won't vote for a lesser of two evils. And if there is a God that I believe in, the God that I believe in would call it a sin to vote for an evil, be it lesser or greater. To me, the whole system is corrupt. And I don't speak from someone from the outside. I began my career, Frank, running political campaigns in Westchester County at a graduate school many years ago. They sent me up to Albany. I was the assistant to the secretary of the New York State Senate. That was the worst job I ever had in my
I can
life.
imagine.
It was. A guy that was born in the Bronx and, social climb to Yonkers, all I did all day, I'd be, I'd be talking with my buddy in the back of the chamber, and a senator would walk in, and my friend would leave me and follow the senator like a little puppy dog and pull out the chair and help him sit down. And my buddy would come back, and I'd say, hey, man, what's the matter? The cat can't sit down by himself? He needs some help? All it was watching grown men grovel all day long.
You're 100% right. I spent a fair amount of time in Albany, and more often than not, that is the case. Let me get your take on a few things in terms of specifically where the country and maybe even the world is heading. Economically, any reason at all to be optimistic next year?
Not at all. It's going to be more of the same but worse. Let's make this really clear. The only reason there's any blip at all in the economic uptick is because they're giving away cheap money. I just took out a commercial loan. I'm up here in Kingston, New York, and I'm on the most historic corners in the United States. The only place on each corner where there's a stone building that predates the Revolution. And I just bought one. It's called the Franz Rogen, R-O-G-G-E-N, Franz
nice.
Rogen House. Yeah, built in 1750. I got a commercial loan for 3.25%. And they covered closing costs.
Wow.
They're giving money away. And what they're doing is they're debasing the world currencies, not only the United States. They just got a new prime minister in Japan, Abe. He said the Bank of Japan has to start printing more money. We have to be more competitive. You heard Mervyn King, he's the guy that's going out now as the head of the Bank of England. He said there's a currency war. Everyone's printing cheap money. The only reason, Frank, the economy is moving along at all is because all of the cheap money that they're flooding into the economy to keep the banks going. This is worldwide. So when I say it's more of the same but worse, because it's not going to do anything in the long run other than debase the value of the currency, because the more they print, the less it's worth, and eventually it's going to cost you more to buy everything. That's why I just bought some real estate, because they locked this loan in, by the way, for 10 years, and I'll be paying it back with cheap money.
Now, obviously, you can't be the only person in the world that can add and can see the writing on the wall and what's happening with all this cheap money being lent out at next to nothing in terms of interest. Why does it keep happening? I can't imagine that that others aren't up in arms like you are about this.
People believe in their belief systems, and that's the difference in being a political atheist. I look at things for the way they are, not the way I want them to be. I'm not rooting for a home team. And when you really think about it, people are also afraid to look at it. They don't want to see how ugly it all looks. So they won't call a spade a spade. It's as old as history. And people want to keep believing in their lie, whichever one it is. How could anybody not see what's going on? Yeah, I mean, it's in front of us all. But again, you turn on the mainstream media and so much of it. I was thinking, I'm watching these women now that they're bringing on to do the business news.
Oh, it's great. It's better than the Playboy channel.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
man. They should do this thing out of a strip club.
You're right. You're right.
I mean, hey, I got some derivatives for you, baby. I mean, they should be doing lap dances on CNBC.
Now, Gerald, a lot of folks are kind of in awe of your track record, all the things you've predicted over the last, quarter century or so. How do you do this? How does your methodology work?
It's very simple. Current events form future trends. So, for example, I'm talking now about the new Prime Minister of Japan, Abe. So, when the elections start going on, I read all about it. I read about where this guy came from. I'm looking at their agenda, what he's talking about, where they're moving, how Japan is now becoming more militaristic. They've announced it, no longer going to be a pacifist country. You have countries like the Philippines. Now think about it. The Philippines, what the Japanese did to them in World War II, the Philippines are now supporting a bigger Japanese fleet and to defend against the growing Chinese threat. So I read things for what they are, what they're saying, and I read what's going on around the world. And again, I don't have any skin in the game. And I really attribute to what I do. It was taught to me by my dear father, may his soul rest in peace. As a little kid, my mother wanted to get rid of me all the time.
Gerald, I know it's late. Can you hang on a few more minutes through this break
Sure.
here? Thank you. I appreciate it. Gerald Celente, when we come back, this is Frank Morano on AM 970, The Answer.
More wit and wisdom in just a moment with Morano on AM 970, The Answer. He'll keep you up, and it'll be worth it. Morano on AM 970, The Answer.
Twenty minutes after 1 o'clock, this is Frank Morano on AM 970, The Answer. We are joined at this very late hour by Gerald Celente, or very early hour, depending on your perspective. He's the editor of the TrendsJournal. He has a pretty good track record of predicting a lot of the disastrous things that have befallen the country and the world the last 25 years. And before we broke, Gerald, I asked you how you go about predicting this, and I interrupted what sounded like a very compelling anecdote about your father.
Yeah, so I was off the charts. So on Saturdays, my mother wanted to get me out of the house, so I'd go out with my father, quote, on business. So I'd be in the car chatting away, and my father would look over at me, and he'd say in Italian, "Pappagallo, parrot, stop repeating what everybody else is saying and think for yourself." I heard a couple of those, Frank, pappagallos, and I realized that I wouldn't open my mouth until I knew what I was talking about and had the facts. And once I had the facts, then I could express them. And that's really what our work with the TrendsJournal is about. It's fact-filled. You may not like the conclusions we come up with, and everyone's entitled to come up with their own conclusions, but we base the conclusions based on the facts. So as you were asking me, what do? We look at what's going on around the world. So I'll give you an example. We're saying right now that the first great war of the 21st century has begun. We're not going to wait for anybody to tell us, that it's begun. We look at the facts, and here are some facts. There's a revolution going on in Egypt. They just had a vote for the Constitution. Only 33% of the people turned out. They have a new parliament. Only 12% of the people voted for that parliament. So now you have a government in there, the Muslim Brotherhood, that absolutely had nothing to do with the so-called Arab Spring. They didn't take to the streets. It's a takeover. Then you go to Tunisia, same exact story. Go over to Yemen. Oh, bombs away, Obama. More drones going in there now than Pakistan. They're in a civil war. Go over to Bahrain. Hey, don't say anything about Bahrain. They got the Fifth Fleet over there, and the Emir's there. He's our friend. But there's a civil war going on there as well. You go over to Syria, civil war. Hey, how about Libya? Civil war. Mali, oh yeah, because when they destabilized Libya and had all those Islamist guys, they got all the weapons. Now they're destabilizing Mali and much of other places in North Africa. Go over to Europe. Is there a civil war going on over there? Well, they call it class warfare in the old days. Millions of people taking to the streets. You read the business media. I'm not making this up. They're saying, will Spain or will Greece stay in their recession or move out in 2013? Recession? They have an official unemployment rate at over 25%.
It's crazy. It's worse than
it's a depression.
Now, since you bring up the world political scene, and since you say this war of the 21st century has already begun, let me ask you about Iran. It seemed like there are folks in both parties kind of beating the drums for war with Iran. In 2013, will the United States be part of some sort of military aggression towards Iran?
I don't know, but I can say with all sincerity, if either Israel or the United States goes to war with Iran, this is going to be the beginning of World War III. In 2000, Frank, I was asked to go to VMI, Virginia Military Institute. That's where, by the way, Mitt Romney announced his foreign policy
Right,
agenda.
I remember that, yeah.
Right? So I went down there. One of the books I wrote in the mid-'90s was Trends 2000. And in Trends 2000, I front-loaded the book with the breakup of the former Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought me down to VMI because I was writing a lot about new millennium warfare. I'm going to tie this back into Iran. You know how they say that generals are always fighting the last war? They brought me down there, and on the panel, after I gave the keynote address, were generals such as General Anthony Zinni. This is the guy that was the number 2 guy under Schwarzkopf, who just passed away in the first Gulf War. A real gentleman, by the way, as well. And a number of other generals. And what the case that I was making is that all of this modern warfare, like now we have the F-35s that have a budget of $1 trillion in their lifespan, and we have all of these, tanks and all the super drones and on and on and on. What I did was I showed that with the breakup of the former Soviet Union, for example, there was a huge black market of weapons of mass destruction that were being sold, including suitcase-sized nukes. So here's the story. You want to start a war in another country? Great. We used to say in the Bronx, payback's a bitch. Now you have, how about, what if a dirty bomb goes off in San Francisco? What if a suitcase-sized nuke goes off in Atlanta? What if biological warfare is waged in New York? We saw what happened with Hurricane Sandy. Something like this happens, the whole country goes on stop. The whole economy crashes. We have a bunch of people, sociopaths and psychopaths in chief, that are starting wars around the world, and it's going to have blowback effects. So when you ask about Iran, these are the Persians. They've been around for thousands of years. There's 70 million of them, highly educated. President Carter started a war, instigated a war with Iraq against Iran in 1980s, at the end of 79 when he was going out. The Iranians lost over 1 million people. They didn't give up 1 inch of land. If anybody attacks Iran, the world war of weapons of mass destruction that we fear will begin.
And that's a frightening prospect. Hopefully, Israel and the United States are reading the Trends Journal. But lastly, Gerald, one of the more interesting editions of the Trends Journal that I read was when you talked about direct democracy as the global game changer. allowing people to vote for themselves rather than elect people who make policy decisions on their behalf. How do you respond to criticisms, mostly from conservatives, but also from some on the left who say that this is too dangerous to do? If you give people the power to vote whatever they want, they're just going to vote themselves all kinds of goodies, and that might not be in the public's best interest as a whole. How do you respond to that criticism?
Are you talking about Congress?
Well, no,
Are you talking about the Gang of 535? That's how many senators and congressmen we have that are telling 315 million of us how to tie our shoes. I need a guy like McCain or McConnell or Bonner or Pelosi or Reid or Schumer to tell me what I must believe. You know, these guys call themselves public servants. You know, I got some toilets to clean. Who the hell are they? And then they give you this line, Frank. You know, we got elected to make the tough decisions. No, you didn't, Junior. You got elected to do what we tell you to do, but you don't do what we tell you to do. You know what you do? You do what the people that give you the most amount of money tell you to do. You do what the most powerful tell you to do. You know, again, what they call campaign financing, I call bribes and payoffs. No, least we will get the future that we deserve. And by the way, the model I believe to use is Switzerland. I mean, you know, look at the country and where they have. I mean, they say, well, they only have 11 or 7 million people. It makes no difference. You vote on an issue, you vote on an issue. If we could bank online, if trillions of dollars a day could be shuffled all over the world, guess what? We could vote online. Oh, you mean we're going to have a better system than hanging chads? Or in Florida, what did it take them? 2 weeks to count the votes the last election?
Gerald Celente, thank you very, very much. I would say Happy New Year, but it doesn't seem like an apt farewell for you.
No, it's a Happy New Year because we can have a future far greater than we can imagine when the people rise up to the greatest heights within ourselves. This way we don't take the baloney being fed to us by the prostitutes and the politicians.
Thank you very much, Gerald Celente. You can read Gerald and all of his predictions through the TrendsJournal. You could find him through the TrendsResearchInstitute. A fascinating man, and unfortunately, most of his predictions have been right on, particularly relating to the global economic collapse. When we return, we're going to try and delve into something a little bit more cheerful. I'll tell you about what I'm doing for New Year's.